and start the recording. All right, good morning and welcome to the Employability Skill Series, where we explore the top skills employers are looking for in candidates. Each week, we will cover a different topic with thoughts and insights from professionals in a variety of industries. I am your host, Megan Morrow, Senior Associate Director of Experiential Learning and Employer Relations. And today I have Derek Loki, Claims Manager with Auto Owners, as my guest. And we will be discussing the importance of embracing mistakes and accepting consequences in the workplace. Derek is the manager of the Florida Construction Defect branch at Auto Owners. He has worked there for 14 years, starting as the as an associate claims representative. Derek attended Florida Southern College from 2003 to 2007. While here, he was a member of the baseball team. He has also been at several of the Career Center events as the representative of Auto Owners. If you've been to any of our events, Derek should look like a very familiar face here. All right, welcome, Derek. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, love having you here. You have one of our briefer bios, so can you tell us just a little bit more about yourself? And we're going to jump into this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, I attended Florida Southern way back when. I graduated in 2007. Um, wasn't quite ready for a grown-up job yet, so I kind of did a few things, but then another alum told me that they were hiring at Florida Southern at Auto Owners Insurance, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? She mentioned that it was a little more stable, a little more of the traditional 9 to 5 than I had been working, and I had my first child on the way, so it sounded good, even though I knew nothing about insurance.
Mhm.
But I went in, and the vibe felt good. It seemed like it was going to work, even if not long term, for a while. And then once I got my foot in the door and started working here and really, diving in and not dipping a toe in, but jumping in fully, it was the place for me. Um, you mentioned 14 years. It'll be 15, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday. So I'm right at
Wow.
15 years from a job that, again, I wasn't, fully sold on when I started. But the culture that we have around here, um, and the people and the things that they've allowed me to do is what's kept me around. And I get to work with not just with a lot of great people uh, within Auto Owners, but I get to branch out, and I've worked with you quite a bit now, and get to go and visit mostly Florida Southern, but but other colleges and universities, and meet people and talk about my experience. So um, yeah, it's a great company fit for me personally.
Mhm.
And like I said, I came in with no knowledge about insurance, so I made plenty of mistakes along the way. So that will
Oh,
lead us perfectly into what we're talking about today.
perfect segue. Yeah, I've been to Auto Owners a couple times and I've met several of your team members. And I have to say, it is just such a welcoming environment. The atmosphere is amazing. And I don't think a lot of people just go like, oh, as a little, person, oh, I want to work in insurance. It's not something that people typically think that that's like their dream job. But like when you get into it, there's so much more in that particular field that you just don't know anything about it until you get into it. And everybody that I've ever talked to, and there's so many alum that work at Auto Owners from Florida Southern, and when you get into it, there's just ways for your career to grow. So anybody on the call that's interested, I'm going to go ahead and say, like let's connect afterwards if anybody's interested in that particular industry that we could talk more about it. But we're going to talk about our topic, which is making mistakes and embracing consequences and accepting the mistakes and everything. But it is a great industry. It is a great company to work for, and I've always felt welcome, just even as an outsider, and the people that work there. So, Auto Owners is a great place. But let's talk about our topic, which is embracing mistakes because that's human, first of all. So. Um, I mean, like, how does this fit into just being a working professional about making mistakes? And how can we go about teaching our students that this is just part of not only being human, but also about being a professional?
Well, yeah, I'm going to talk about it mostly from obviously an insurance and a professional aspect, but you mentioned it. Everybody makes mistakes. And in any business environments, I'm going to share my screen here
Here,
quickly.
let me stop sharing mine.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
There we go. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so obviously, everybody makes mistakes. In the business world is no different. Um, you know, in any business environment, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Um,
Hmm.
so one thing that really spoke to me early on in my career is I said I didn't know anything about insurance other than I had what my limits were on my car. Um, so I was learning everything, and many managers, leaders, people in who have been promoted up throughout the ranks will tell new associates about a mistake that they've made. Um, Usually larger mistakes too, because everyone makes, the tiny mistakes, but um, a lot of the leadership team will reference a big mistake that they've made at some point in their career just to put the newer associates at ease. Because it's like, oh wow, look at this person who's, now managing all these people. They made a mistake and they didn't get fired. They didn't, it didn't halt their progress. Again, it helps to kind of ease people in and almost, I don't want to say encourage mistakes, but not to be, ashamed of them.
Yeah, it makes you
One
relatable. It makes you, it humanizes the experience, I think.
Absolutely. I remember it wasn't my manager when I started, but one of the other managers was just talking to me kind of in a casual conversation. I don't know if we were getting coffee or what we were doing, but he had mentioned that one time when he was a relatively new claim rep, he made what amounted to be a $500,000 mistake.
Whoa.
Um, Basically just misinterpreting a coverage and it led to all of that and he was a manager and then he went on to be promoted again. So that kind of gave me a little like, okay, like I don't have to be perfect.
Hmm.
Um, and just let me know that the company will stand behind you as long as you're doing things the right way.
Okay.
So um one of the things that I always talk about is like what separates high performers in any industry is not avoiding mistakes, but it's how you respond to them.
Oh,
um
okay.
a lot of professional success, it's not defined by perfection. It's ownership and accountability and how you grow from those things. So a couple of things that I want to hit on really quickly today. Um, why the mistakes happen, what the cost is of avoiding, the accountability for it, embracing, and then obviously embracing mistakes and accepting consequences. Those are our key topics today.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so why mistakes happen? There's a lot of reasons, but they're not always, if you make a mistake, they're not always just a product of something that you've done. Um, in the business world, again, that's where I'm framing this. Um, a lot of things are complex and a little ambiguous, so you may not always know exactly, you may not always have all of the information regarding a project, depending on what your position is. Um, Priorities change as the world, we've seen this, it's an ever evolving, very quickly evolving world. um, the business world is no different. Priorities can change for various reasons at the drop
Hmm.
of a hat. So
Okay.
um, a lot of times these transitions is where there's miscommunication and things happen. um, in our industry we get court rulings all the time, sometimes that we're not even aware of, that affect how we need to handle claims. Um, we're used to handling something one way, and then all of a sudden, there's a ruling in a case now changes the way we've done things, or the way we've done things affects our outcomes. Um, it's a high pressure, high volume environment a lot of the times, and speed. the urgency often leads to mistakes. Um, and it's not all of these are gigantic, earth-shattering mistakes, but just even small mistakes sometimes have far-reaching consequences. Um, so the fact that most workforces are trying to get the most out of their employees, um, and get the job done with the least amount of people possible, leads to high volumes, and pressure to act quickly causes imperfect choices. Another thing that I mentioned a little while ago was communication.
Mhm.
There's communication gaps. Oftentimes, different groups or teams need to work together to get things done. And sometimes between teams, there can be a miscommunication, a lack of communication, assumptions that one team or one person is doing something when they're not, which leaves things that don't get done.
I can
Um,
attest to that. That happens a lot, and like sometimes you'll hear people say the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And when there's that breakdown of communication, I know sometimes that's even happened on my own team where when we're putting on events, maybe like when we put in our activity request, I think that somebody has reserved parking and somebody thinks that I've reserved parking, and then all of a sudden it's the day of, and we don't have parking spots, and it's just, okay, well, you scramble, you figure it out, and instead of just saying, oh, well, I thought you did it, I thought you did it, and that can cause chaos within the team, and now there's tension, and it's like, okay, let's just stop, take a breath, embrace it. All right, don't point fingers. Let's not get mad at each other because that's not going to magically make parking spots reserved, right? It's not going to fix it, you know? So, yeah, okay, that happens a lot, guys. By the way, that happens a lot with just a small, tiny little bit of miscommunication, and it could blow up, or you could just go, okay, how do we fix it?
Even small teams, like two or three
Hmm.
person teams, one person can think the other person is handling something, like you mentioned, and that all the students have experienced that before. How everyone's done a group project before,
Oh, yes.
or I thought someone was doing this, or they didn't do as good of a job as they should have done, or everything they should have done. It happens.
It
Um,
happens. Hmm.
I've got a teenager right now, a 13-year-old who is struggling with some of this. So I've been talking about this a
Wait,
lot.
wait, teenagers
I know, right? I
miscommunicating?
know.
Gasp.
Um, but yeah, I've been dealing with this a lot lately. But besides that, there are human factors, biases that we have,
Mm,
overconfidence, fatigue. You could have been coming off of an illness. You could have not been sleeping well for any number of personal reasons. And you just make a mistake. That, again, we're not perfect. That happens too.
hmm.
Um, and then also limitations with our systems. Everything is moving so fast technologically, that sometimes one system can't catch up to another. Um, there's not checks and balances to make sure that things work because people assume that the technology or something should have been done properly. So, or data entry errors. You can only work with the data you've been given. And if someone gives you the wrong data, then you make assumptions based off of that. And now everything is just kind of off the rails from there.
Mm.
Um, so those are some of the reasons. Obviously, there's many more why they happen, but they do happen. That's what we're saying is like even the best laid plans uh, don't always result in the ending that you want. So one of the things that Megan just mentioned with the parking situation was, are we going to stand around and point fingers? That's not going to magically create parking spaces for us. Um, we just need to accept that it happened and move on. So, some of the things here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the cost, what it does when you don't take that accountability right away. Um, More when there is actually a mistake and not just a lack of communication of, I thought you were doing this, you thought I was doing this. When you make a mistake, it's best to own up immediately, because if you try to hide it or avoid it or run from it, it can cause a lack of trust. A
Mm.
lack of trust among your team, or a lack of trust with your customers if it's a mistake that was made that directly affects customers. Um, And trust is something that is very easy to lose, but very hard to gain. So,
Oh,
and
big
it's a lot
time.
easier to maintain the trust than it is to gain it back. So,
Yes.
that's, I mean, you can attest to that.
Yes.
Um, Oftentimes, if you avoid, your mistakes, um, we have a slower resolution. A lot of times, like Megan mentioned in her example, if you avoid it and don't tell anyone that there's no parking, that's not going to help. And that in that case, it was time sensitive. The sooner you own up and be like, I forgot to reserve parking. Now we can start coming up with solutions. We're not
Hmm.
figuring out what happened. Um, there's a cultural impact. I mentioned one of the reasons that I'm still with auto owners is because I love the culture around here. Um, People do make mistakes and admit and own up to them. If that wasn't the case and everyone is always blaming everyone and pointing fingers and it's not a fun or enjoyable place. It's not a good environment to be in. So it can affect the culture, which can lead to, good people leaving.
Yes.
And you don't want that. And then when good people leave, more work gets put on the people that are still around. So
Hmm.
that cultural impact is big. Um, Oftentimes, if you avoid your mistakes, you don't have a chance to learn from them. And a mistake can be a good thing as long as you learn something from it. But if you avoid it, you don't learn from it, then you're making the same mistake over and over again. Most people are fine with a mistake. Most people are not fine with the same mistake over and over
Same
and over
mistake over and
again.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the problem is. I have no problem if one of the people on my team makes a mistake. I don't want to see that mistake twice, but I definitely don't want to see it three times, um, because that just means they're not growing from it.
Yeah, even as a parent, I will say that to my kids. Like they'll say, "I'm sorry." I said, "That's fine. No, no, you're learning. Now you do it again and again and again, then the I'm sorry's don't cut it." And that same thing, crosses over into the workplace. Same thing, you can say I'm sorry and now that sorry means nothing. Because
Yep.
now you're not learning, like you're just saying, like you're not learning, you're not getting anything out of it, and now you're just taking advantage, which again goes back to that first point you're talking about is trust and not I'm not trusting you because now I just think you're taking advantage and you're just taking my kindness for weakness now. And you're just like, oh well, oh well, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point.
One of my favorite quotes that I just recently heard a couple months ago is if you're gonna go through it, grow through it. So if it's gonna
Oh, I
happen,
like that.
at least learn from it and become better from it.
I like
Um,
that a lot.
yeah, I know. I heard that and I was just like, wow, that hit right where it needed to.
I'm gonna write that down.
Um, Along with that, like we talked about, your credibility. You just mentioned it, like in your example, and also, accountability is a good leadership trait. You mentioned earlier when I was talking about our leadership team that it shows that they're human and infallible or not infallible. Um, so it gives you a little bit of credibility when you're willing to own up to your mistakes right away. And depending on the business that you're in or what exactly the mistake is, there can be financial and legal consequences depending on the mistake and you know what the um, what the profession is. I know with us, we've got a fiduciary duty. We deal with people's money, so we have certain things that we need to do. And if we
Hmm.
don't do those things, there can be, you know, financial consequences, loss of licenses, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, Avoidance will protect your ego in the short term, so people don't think that you've made a mistake necessarily, but it causes long-term damages. It's more short-sighted, more of a band-aid than anything else, really.
Yeah,
Um,
and you will gain so much more respect from the people around you by admitting it more than
yeah,
anything, because nobody expects you to know everything. I mean, even someone as seasoned as you and I, Derek, like no one expects us to be, omnipotent and just know everything all the time. I will say, like, I like admitting when I don't know something because then it's a learning opportunity for me to learn something new.
yeah,
Even when my students ask me something, I have no problem being like, hey, that's a great question. Let me find out for you. I don't know.
yeah. You can ask my team if you ever talk to any of them. Oftentimes, I'm like, I don't know, but I will find out. And
Hmm.
you know, um, I'd rather do that than pretend to know something and be wrong. And again, that's
Yeah.
going to lead down all these things we just talked about. Um, but yeah, so embracing your mistakes is a great segue there, Megan. Immediate ownership is a great way to, like you said, acknowledge that you've made a mistake. Um, it's better to use I and we as opposed to they. We don't want a blame culture.
Yeah.
Um, which I see a lot with my teenagers. Well, they, and it's like, I don't care about they. I care about
Yeah.
you. Um, but the more that you focus on yourself, whether it is your mistake or not. I come from a sports background, like I said, baseball,
Hmm.
or you said baseball at the beginning. Um, I often, would quote unquote fall on the sword because I didn't want my teammates to think I was blaming them for anything because that doesn't create that trust that we've talked about a couple of times. Um, but anyway, so talking about the ownership, the I and the we, um, focus on responsibility, not excuses. That's what I tell my people. And I also tell them it gets more difficult usually the longer you wait. If you immediately own up to something, a lot of times there's more options how to rectify the situation. But the longer you wait, now we may have lost some options. And I know personally it can weigh on you that like I've made this mistake, someone's going to find out eventually. It can
Hmm.
cause stress and all kinds of things that we don't want that we have enough of already. Um, Another way to kind of, help you embrace mistakes is to communicate transparently, be clear, explain exactly what happened, and what if you have a plan, what your plan is to fix it. If you don't have a plan, say that's like, and I don't know what to do now.
Hmm.
That way people can help you. And you also need to kind of tailor that message, your communication to who you're talking to. Are you talking to your teammates? Hey, I messed up. I did this. I forgot to reserve parking. Or are you talking to customers? Hey, I messed up. I misread your policy. We actually have this or don't have this. Um, Make sure don't just give a general statement. Make sure that you're clear and descriptive about what's going on. Uh, Correct the issue if you know how to correct the issue. Um, do it quickly, but make sure um, that you're doing it thoroughly. We don't want to just quickly go through something just to get it done and get it out of the way and potentially create more problems. And this is the big one we already talked about. Learn and improve. You made a
Yes.
mistake.
Bro.
What was the root cause? Why was the mistake made? Were you just moving too fast? Do you not understand something? Do you need additional training? Is it a problem with the internal system that we use where it doesn't catch this thing, and maybe it's a larger sort of fix that needs to be done throughout the company? Um, but whatever it is, don't just I made this mistake. Figure out why the mistake was made and correct it or learn from it or ask, hey, I made this mistake. I don't know how to fix it. Asking for help is not a bad thing. Um, so yeah, figure out what the actual root cause is, not just the cause. Um, if you can, implement some safeguards. If you made a mistake, if there's a way to prevent other people from making that mistake that you can implement as a company or within your team, do that. Like I said, I know everyone's going to make mistakes. I don't want them to make mistakes if they don't have to. If they don't have to go through what I went through, I don't want that. So I'm going to try to improve our team functions as best I can,
Hmm.
from what I've learned. And we've hit on this several times now. It's an accountability culture. Um,
Hmm.
Leaders need to model taking ownership, which with the example that I gave right at the beginning, but we need to encourage to our teams, and I try to, is like, hey, if you make a mistake, I'm not mad. You just got to let me know so I can help. The sooner you let me know, the more we can do. Encourage people like, hey, let them know that they're going to make mistakes. Don't make it a bad word. Like I said, let them know that it's okay. Um, mistakes handled well can become assets,
Yes.
but mistakes hidden can become liabilities. Um, so again, the sooner you get out in front of it and bring it to light, the more that can be done with it.
Absolutely.
Um,
And then this is the best part here. This is the accepting the consequences part here. I think this is the best part because I mean like we're all going to do it, but it's how you handle it. And I'm not big on cliches, but I really do love when people talk about like, like it's not about what happens to you or it's not about like the world. It's all about how you handle it. It's all
mhm.
about your attitude about it. It's all about what you're going to do with it. Like, no, you can't help the fact that somebody rear-ended you at the stoplight, or it's not about the fact that the schedule you couldn't register for the classes that you wanted because that they filled up before you got a chance to register. What are you going to do about it? Too bad. Okay, get over it. Now, what do you do next? So this part is the best part.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Um, and this is the part that people don't like, you know, or like the least is the consequences part. Um,
Hmm.
but there are consequences. So, um, but part of embracing your mistakes is accepting the consequences too. You're not truly
Yes.
embracing it if if you don't want the consequences that go with it. But it does. It shows maturity, professionalism, and integrity if if you're able to kind of take whatever comes from the mistakes that you've made. A couple of ways that makes this hopefully a little easier. You need to reframe consequences. They're not a punishment. It's accountability. It's fairness. You would want someone else to you know accept a consequence if they did something wrong. It's part of
Hmm.
the responsibility that you have of being a student, being a professional, or whatever line of work you're in, or a teammate. Um, and there's different types of consequences. There's personal. You may need to work extra hours to make up for your mistake. You may lose out on an opportunity in the short term. There may be performance feedback issues. Um, there could be a reputational impact, but that's what we talked about, how you respond to it. If you respond poorly, that's going to be a much more negative reputational impact than if you respond in the correct way. But then
Yes.
on the macro view, there could be, I mentioned in my profession, there could be financial penalties,
Hmm.
license issues, or not so negatively, process changes. Consequences aren't always negative. It
No.
could change the way that you handle something as a company, which could be a good thing. Um, And then we've talked about it already, but the personal growth. Make a mistake, accept the consequences, and that will help you learn. It'll help you build resiliency. Hopefully it'll improve your skill development and make better decisions. Um, but professionals, don't just fix mistakes, they accept the outcomes.
Yes.
Um, because it's one thing to fix a mistake, but there still may be some bad consequences that come with it. And like you said, the way you respond to it.
Yeah.
If you just sulk in the corner and really shut down, that says a lot, almost more than the mistake you made. Versus if you just keep that positive attitude and um, try to try to do better the next time, that shows a lot
Mhm.
to
And try to grow
employers.
from it. Yeah,
Hmm.
try to grow from it, and then show that positive attitude, and then, if you're a member of a team and, and you kind of the one that screwed up, if you will, you say, hey guys, I did this. I'm sorry. I own it, whatever the consequences are, and you're not, placing blame and like you said, not sulking and you're like, you just keep your head up high. Put your shoulders back, put your head up
Yep.
high, because again, everybody's been there, everybody's done it. If anybody's going to say they haven't made a mistake, they are lying 100%. And then you just own it. And then the way that you own your, this consequence will show, like, you'll earn more respect from the person that had to dole out the consequence, especially if it's a negative one. Maybe like you said, there's some performance issues, or maybe you have to miss out on something. I'm immediately thinking about like my own children. My son, he was a C on his report card, and before we even pulled up the report card, he says to me, he goes, he's almost 13 too, so he's right on the same age as yours, and he goes, hey, he's like, Mom, before you even pull it up, I gotta let you know. He's like, there's probably going to be a C on there. He goes, and it's all my fault. He goes, there was, and he ran down, he told me exactly why there was a C. And I'm looking at him like, are you kidding me right now? Most 12-year-olds would be like, oh, blah, 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 excuse, excuse, excuse. It's not my fault, this and this and this and this. But he was like, this is all on me, Mom. And there was this happened this day, and I was out and I didn't check and I didn't, and this was, I have no one to blame but myself. I was almost in tears. I was like, most adults are not that
Yeah.
accountable. I said, I don't give two hoots about this stupid C. I am so impressed with you, that I'm like, screw the C. Like that's amazing. Just the way that he was able to own that. And so like that right there, I was like, there are no consequences now because of just the way that he owned and he was so upfront about it and wasn't hiding anything. So like the way that you own it, the way that you get in front of it, and the way you're just like, yeah, I did this. I'm not proud of it, and I'll take whatever you throw at me, and I'm going to keep my head up, and I'm going to keep moving forward, and it's not going to happen again. And when it doesn't happen again, that trust continues to grow and build. This is great. I love this topic.
A C can be, I mean, I guess it can't be fixed if it's on the report card, but you can learn to get a better grade. It takes a
Hmm.
lot more to learn that accountability that you just talked about. I can
Yeah,
teach you how to read a policy and how to, issue a payment and things like that, but I don't know that I can teach you how to be that responsible and accountable.
yeah,
That's more of an innate thing and something that you need to work on yourself. I can't really teach that.
yeah.
Um,
Super cool. This is such a great topic, and this is something that I mean we could always all be working on. We're all a work in progress at all times. I love the quote, if you're going to go through it, grow, is it grow through it?
grow through it. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I know we're up on our time here. I'm sure you probably had more to share with us, but do you have any parting words of wisdom for our students that were on the call or that are going to watch the recording?
Yeah, I got one more thing. I've got some stuff here, but yeah, I mean, like we talked about multiple times, mistakes are inevitable, but the integrity is a choice that you get to make.
Hmm.
Like we said, you're going to make mistakes. You get to choose how you handle it. Um, we know we're not going to be perfect, so those innate qualities that we just talked about are going to be more important than a perfect, record or a perfect performance. And the strongest organizations don't avoid mistakes or aren't the ones that avoid mistakes. They're the ones that respond the right way. They're the ones that stick around for a long, long time. Um, but yeah, I'm still making mistakes, learning, and listen, I'm not always as accountable as I tried to preach here today. There are certain things that's hard to do. I get
Well,
it.
you're human.
Um, but exactly. So it's a work in progress. It's something you work on every day, but it is one of those intangible qualities that, an employer is gonna fall in love with. Um, so again, we can teach you some of the hard skills, but this kind of skill or personality trait is something that we can't. So if you can develop that, you're going to be a step ahead of a lot of people.
Yeah. I think this goes hand in hand with being resilient, being able to bounce back from life setbacks because it's life is not linear. There's going to be ups and downs, and I personally believe you have to have the valleys in order to appreciate the high points.
Mhm.
So embrace the suck sometimes because you're going to have the ups, but without the lows, you never really get to appreciate the peaks. So great topic, Derek. Thank you again, always for sharing your time, which is so, limited and so valuable, and your thoughts with us and your wisdom. Thank you, students that joined us and that are going to watch the recording. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or you want any more nuggets of information on this, or if you're interested in auto owners, you can connect with Derek Loki on LinkedIn, or please come see him at any of our events. He's always at all of our events. But again, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Derek, thank you. Have a great
Thanks
rest of
for
your
having me.
Wednesday, everybody, and we'll see you around. Thanks, everybody. All right, I'm going to stop this.